Hello and welcome to another Teamo8 hand review session. Um, let's get right into it. This is one of our Teamo8 players. Again, it's an 18-seat turbo sit and go. Omaha high-low, of course, as it always is with us. Anyway, let's get right into it. First hand, well, the first hand we're looking at. A couple of limpers. Oh, and we get a very nice flop. We've flopped the nuts, or as we say in Omaha, the temporary nuts. Anyway, let's see what our player does here. Oh, he checks. I don't like that check at all. We're well in front on this board, so really we need we need to be getting chips into the pot. Anytime we're this far in front, we need to be playing it fast. We don't want to give a free card to flush and straight draws. In fact, I think our player might. Maybe he went for the check raise. He's got a special read. I don't know, but he might have confused the situation with this when you've got top set and there's a low and a flush draw. Let me just point out some equities here. For example, on this board, if we give someone the nut flush draw and the nut low backdoor low draw, we're still, we've got 2/3 equity against that hand. So that's why we want to be getting the money in fast. However, there is another situation like this. Say we change the board and that jack of clubs becomes an eight of clubs, putting a nut low draw on the board as well as a nut flush draw. As you can see, uh, the ace two of clubs with any two other random cards, we're not even considering straight cards, all of that, is suddenly in front. That's one of the big adjustments in split pot games. You flop top set, but if there's a flush and a low draw, you're quite possibly behind, and you don't want to be getting your stack all in on the flop. However, in this case, there's only a backdoor low draw, so we absolutely would love to get our entire stack in on the flop. So this check here is a bit of a mistake. Let's see what happens. Okay, something we really didn't want. Now the now the low has come out, and now he finally bets it. Gets called in two places, and now may have been sucked out by a straight, so he checks. Checking and calling is the best option here. If you bet out, you're only getting called by a better hand. Everyone checks it down, and we got what we wanted from that point on the turn. We got a cheap river. Okay, now moving right along. Okay, now let's see what happens here. We're on the button with a fairly decent hand. Folds around, and he folds. Now, ordinarily this is a mistake. This is this player's first game playing flops. We start our players out with a shovel fold strategy initially to begin with, just while they're learning the basics of Omaha. Because we take players who've never played Omaha high-low before in their lives, so we're teaching them everything from the ground up. This is his first game playing flops, and he's been assigned a tight hand range. Even so, this hand is slightly outside his open raising range from early position, but he could have raised here for a steal, and of course, if this guy here jams, you'd be happy to call with a hand this strong. Anyway, moving right along. Okay, here we have this the next hand from the same player. This is in a different game, but it's still the same 18-seat turbo, but this is second game playing flops. Anyway, let's see what happens here. Folds around, and he calls. Now, you'll see this a lot. You see a lot of players doing this. I'm not a huge fan of open limping the small blind. Really, if we're strong enough to play out of position, we're strong enough to come in for a raise. If we're not strong enough to come in for a raise, apart from when we get to more advanced topics like stealing, then we shouldn't be playing the hand. But anyway, he's open limped. I'd much rather see a raise in this spot. Okay, next hand. Okay, our player's done really well in this game. He's made it all the way through to heads up. He's got there with a short stack, unfortunately. But let's see what he does here. Now, my preference here is to jam this hand. In fact, the odds, the equity say it should be jammed. Let's see what he does. He's folded. Okay, now to a lot of people, this hand looks weak, but heads up, given the large stack and Annihilator, I've seen quite a few hands from him. He's going to call with any two low cards, and it doesn't matter what his other two cards are. So let's have a look at the equities. So if we compare this hand to the calling range, which pretty much includes any hand that has two small cards in it, that's 8 or lower, yeah, we're basically at a coin flip. So when you've got a short stack like this, you really want to be getting that stack in. And in fact, our equity is in effect is more than 50% because sometimes this particular player, I've seen him do it, he will call with high only hands. He will also he will, and occasionally he will fold. If he just folds just 5% of the time, our equity is more than 50. Our total equity in the hand is more than 50%. So, yep, that one shouldn't be folded. It should be jammed. Okay, now here's the third game from the same player. Let's see what he does. Limp, limp, limp. And he makes a call. I'm not a huge fan of a call in this spot. Look, it's not terribly bad. You're on the button. You can do it. The problem, of course, is you can never make a nut low. You need to have two wheel cards to make a nut low. But he's compensated by the fact that he has got two suited aces. So let's see how it goes. All right, now this is quite a tricky board for a set of aces. There's probably a low out there already, so we're only playing for half the pot. This is one of these big adjustments when you're new to a split pot game to understand that you haven't got a fantastic hand here. It's okay-ish. You've got a 6. It's a blocker to one of the straights. Let's see what happens. Okay, someone leads out the bet. Let's consider our odds here. How many... We're really looking to pair the board because almost anything that comes next, or anything by the river, there's going to be a straight most of the time. If the board doesn't pair, we're in a lot of trouble. He's bet 150 into 250 pot. We don't really have the odds to draw to a full house because remember, we're only playing for half the pot. And the reason we don't have the odds, sure, you might say, hey, there's some implied odds in later street, but not really, unless it's multi-way. We've got these players to act behind, and of course, we're in danger that someone with 2-3 will raise behind us. So I'd prefer to fold the hand right now so that we're not in any trouble, because this is going to be very hard to play. Well, he has made the call, and another player has too, so... Okay, now, well, at least an additional straight card didn't come. Of course, it brings up another straight draw for anyone with a hand like 2-3 King Jack or 2-3 King 10. But anyway, it's brought up to flush draw. The pot's at 700. Our stack is at 1245. We're starting to look somewhat committed to this pot. Let's see what happens here. So he comes out, bets very close to the pot. Now, absolutely... this should be, it should have been a fold on the flop so you didn't get to here. But if we call here, it's half our stack. And then we're faced with a really big problem on the river. Okay, so player jams. I guess you could argue that that's slightly better than calling, but you're not folding out deuce 3. There's just no way anyone's folding the nut low here. And especially the way this guy has come out and bet again, I'm prepared to bet that his deuce 3, he's got a couple of spades to go with it. And at this point in the hand, we're not looking very good. Actually, let's take a look. Let's take a look at some odds and our equities if we're up against, say, just the deuce 3 of spades. And as you can see here, if our opponent holds the nut low, which is looking extremely likely at this point, after he got called on the flop and he's betting out again on the turn, nearly pot. So if he's got the nut low and he's got just any 2 spades, he's massively in front of us. Now, people who are not used to a split pot game probably have a hard time understanding this. We have the nuts on the board, the temporary nuts, yeah, but we're behind. We're behind the nut low who's drawing to a flush. Well, not only is he drawing to a flush, of course, with 2-3 of spades, or 2-3 in any 2 spades, a 4, he's also got 3 additional outs with the 4s to make a straight. So, yeah, getting our stack in here with only, 1/3 equity in the pot, and we're not even counting the third player who's in the hand, who may have additional outs. He may have the nut low as well, and additional outs to draw. But anyway, let's see what happens. We don't. No, he doesn't fold. And of course, there, it's exactly what we were scared of. He has the nut low, the nut low and the spade draw. We've just gone and got our entire stack in on the turn with the nuts, and we're miles behind. This is one of the big adjustments you need to make in split pot games. You need to be able to play for both sides of the pot, not just half a pot. Anyway, I'm sure our player, now that he's seen those equities, will understand, and I don't expect we'll see him making that mistake again. And yeah, and just to replay, this whole problem could have been avoided by folding the flop. That was the course of action to take. Just fold the flop. Anyway, let's move along. Okay, here we are. The next hand we're looking at. Let's see what happens. We're on the button. Okay, there's a raise in front of us. We should lay this hand down. Oh, but our player is jammed. Actually, I think I know what's going on here. We provide our players when they're starting out with shoving hand ranges, and I think what he might have done is misread his stack size or misread the guide, because this is a hand that would shove in this situation if our stack was a bit smaller. And so maybe he's made a mistake there and misread the guide. This is a negative EV play in this situation. Anyway, we've got one more hand. Let's go take a look at it. Okay, here we are in the big blind. Let's see what happens. Okay, we get a free flop. Oh, and he's jammed. Again, I think what's happened here is our player has misread the jamming ranges. In fact, I note that if his stack was 1 blind smaller, then I would advocate a jam here, even with the limpers in the pot, because there is actually some reasonable equity in this hand. But I think he's made the classic mistake of not counting his big blind in his stack. I think he thinks he's got 1332, when in fact his stack is 1532. So yeah, I think again that's a misread of some of our training material. But anyway, not bad. This was this player's first 3 games where he's opening up and playing flops. He's done quite well. He came second in one of them. Anyway, if you'd like to know more about the sort of training that we do and the staking bankrolls we provide, check us out on the website at teamo8.com. Anyway, thanks and bye for now.